of poisonous snakes in the very populated city of Delhi in India. So lots of poisonous snakes, people were dying from snakes, and it became a huge problem. So what they did to try and solve the problem was they came up with a brilliant idea to offer a financial reward for every dead cobra, every dead snake that any member of the population brought to the government offices. So you would kill a cobra, bring the dead cobra and say, I came to collect my money, my reward, and they would pay you for that. So they thought, let's use the people to get rid of the problem. Very good idea. Initially, it was very successful, as you can imagine. People started hunting these snakes. Where is the snake? And they kill the snake and go there, get money, etc. So it was very successful at first. But then, as it often happens, some very clever people, very entrepreneurial people, saw the opportunity to make money from breeding snakes. You know, for the income, for the money. So what they would do is, okay, the British are paying money for dead cobras, let's breed cobras. Bring cobras together, lots of cobras, and okay, take that one, kill, go get the money, and bring some more, and they began to breed cobras. So what happened was, when the government got wind of that, of course they scrapped the scheme, no more reward for dead cobras. So the breeders went like, oh, what are we going to do with all these cobras now? Let's release them to the wild. And the cobra population increased even more. In other words, the solution to the problem became another problem, made the problem even worse. And that's the law of unintended consequences, which is also happening with this advice that kids have received from parents, mothers, and sometimes fathers, not just them. Culture, as I said, as a whole is driving this advice. Sometimes, you know, if you find a woman, if you talk to a woman nowadays, especially a young woman, and you ask her, what do you do? What's your job? And she says, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't work. They're gonna look at you and think, what's wrong with you? In other words, you're expected to have your career, to have your money. So this message has resulted in what? For a lot of women, talking about women first. It has resulted in very educated women, very good at what they do, very successful in their work. But for many of them, very lonely. They dedicated so much of their younger years investing in money and career that when they started reaching their 30s and mid-30s and 40s, they suddenly stopped and wondered, wait a minute, what about my love life? I still don't have a family, I still don't have any prospects. What's going on? I have the money, all right. I even have a cat. But they're still very lonely. And often they become even bitterer than their mothers towards men. Very distrustful of men. Because remember, they were brainwashed to believe that they can't trust men, they can't rely on men. They have to be very independent. So, lots of single women are paying the price, staying lonely for long periods, feeling stuck. At their age of 30, 30-something, when they look around, men their age are either already married or just big babies in extended adolescence. And they feel stuck. Married women, on the other hand, now that they have their money, now that they have their independence, they find it's a lot easier to just get a divorce if the marriage is not working. You know, now I have options. If you don't treat me well, if things are not all right between us, you know what? I don't need you. You are dispensable. So I can support myself. And divorce sometimes is an option for even trivial things. Even problems that could, with a little bit more effort, have been worked on, both for women and for men.
It's important to understand that we are not saying that you have to depend on man. Because I don't think I depend on Renato. I don't see myself as a dependent. I used to be. I used to depend on him a lot. And I had many problems. But I don't depend on him. But that doesn't mean I don't need him. And the thing is, the women, many women they're associating, I don't depend on men, to I don't need a man. But they can't tell that to their heart. They can't tell them to, because there are moments they are alone. There are moments they will be alone. And they will feel the need to have a husband, a partner. So you need to be able to see the difference, that you can be independent financially, you can be independent, but you need to realize that there's a part of you that needs a man, just like a part of man that needs a woman.
So, in other words, they can't tell their heart, sorry, I need to focus on my career, you know, making money and etc. Eventually their heart's going to cry out and say, look, I can't live on money alone, okay? I need love, I need affection. And that does not mean you have to depend on a man, or a man depend on a woman. No human being should depend exclusively on another human being. But we need each other. There are things in my life that only Christianity can fulfill. It doesn't matter how successful I may be at my work, it's not going to fill that part. Same thing for her. So we're not saying you have to depend on men or depend on women. It's two different things you're talking about. So women have paid a high price for that, but men also. What has happened to men with this advice that they received? Well, men have simply done more of what they've always done. With this advice, you know, of course, they want to work in order to make more money. They want to play, to have fun. And they want what men want. They want sex. And men have been doing these three things, making money, playing, and having sex, now with a new situation, without the complications of marriage. Because they don't have to, since marriage is not being valued so much. So people, because of this advice, have been postponing marriage to disastrous consequences for them and for families. The best environment for people, for children, is a family. It's the best environment where there's respect, where there's love. It's the best thing that can happen to anyone. But when people deprive themselves of that, lots of problems begin to happen. You know, one thing that many women are not told is that the fertility rates start dropping on average for women from the age of 27. In other words, it's harder for you to get pregnant after 27. After 30, it drops, I think, 20 to 30%. After 35, it's unlikely that for a lot of women that they will get pregnant. No wonder why, you know, IVFs and fertility clinics are making a lot of money nowadays, because people are postponing marriage. And they're not told this is truth, is reality, and often paying a high price for it. So, postponing marriage, postponing families, but also this two-income family now, when they are married, now that the man works and the woman works and they have money, a lot of them still don't know how to deal with this new reality. You know, we counsel a lot of couples where the woman makes more money than the man, and that's great. If Christiane made 10 times what I make, I'll be very happy. And that would not have marriage problems. It would not be a marriage problem for us. We've learned how to deal with that. We've learned to separate money from power in the relationship. It's not because the man makes more money that he can boss his wife around or his family around, or vice versa. We've learned to separate these two things. But a lot of couples, unfortunately, haven't been able to do that. And in their arguments, a lot of their fights are around the money issue, where they disagree on what to do with money, and then their wife suddenly turns and says, okay, if you don't want to do it, I'll do it with my money. Okay, you don't have to buy it, you don't have to pay, I'll do it with my money then. And of course, it's no longer a money problem. Now it becomes a lot of other problems, individuality and lack of respect, etc., etc. So, what we are saying to people is that this advice that we've been hearing from birth, whether it be from parents or from society, from TV, whatever, is not working. It's creating more problems. More problems than it started out trying to solve. What we are saying is not, let's go back to the way our grandparents used to live. Let's put, you know, our wives back to wash dishes and clothes and cook. That's not what we are saying. We are saying is that neither that was working, nor this. Here's a clue for you, that a lesson that you can take home with you. In life, you should stay away from extremes. Stay away from extremes in life. Wherever you see, not only in marriage, but whatever area of your life, you see that you are getting close to an extreme, like I just got off the light now. When you get close to an extreme, you are beginning to get to a dangerous point. Either extreme. So in this situation, the male-dominated extreme or the female independent, don't trust in men, don't rely on men extreme, neither of these is working. You need to find a balance. You need to know how to do the things that work. In fact, that's one of the things about marriage. Marriage is about two people balancing each other. You have to find a way to balance each other. Like, we are very different people. We have very different qualities and personality traits. And they were problems for us in the beginning, the first years of our marriage. We butt heads with each other because of that. But eventually, we learned to balance each other. I learned to use Christiane's talents and appreciate her differences, and she did the same to me.
You learned to relax a little bit more with me.
Because I was always work, right? And life is about this. You need to learn how to balance things, not to fight for extremes. In marriage, do not try to make that person a copy of you, of yourself. You've got to be like me. You've got to, because we love that person so much that we want to turn them into ourselves. That's what we usually do. I wanted to turn Christiane into a version of me. So, because I am usually tougher, less emotional, you know, I'm more focused. I wanted her to be tougher, less emotional, more focused, more work-oriented and less socially oriented. And she was trying to turn me into a version of her as well. Right? She wanted me to become socially oriented, less focused, less work and all of that. And of course, while we tried that on each other, it never worked, because you have to learn to appreciate the other person's personality and qualities, even the flaws, and learn how to work with those things and positively influence that person, not try to change, not to criticize the way he or she is, but try to give a little bit of yourself to balance the way that person is. I was imbalanced in the way I worked as a single man. She was imbalanced too, but thank God we learned how to balance each other out. And that's one of the first things you need to learn about love and life as a whole. So what we are saying, instead of prioritizing money and career, is we are saying prioritize marriage. And why is that? Why is that important? How is that going to make a difference in your life? Move marriage up on your priority list. Because nowadays, marriage seems to be the last thing on people's minds, if they haven't already given up on it altogether. You know, first comes a lot of things, and usually it's related to career and work and self-actualization and my dreams and my goals. And marriage is way down there. Because people haven't learned how to figure this out, so they basically have given up on it as a bad thing. So if you make marriage central to your life, it will work as a support for everything else.
And to practice this, to take this into practice is, for example, today, you have invested in your love life because you came here. A lot of people heard about the Love School event, but they're not here. You came, you're learning, you're hearing, you're listening, you're writing down. This is an investment that you're making. Every time you learn to have a relationship, to be in a relationship, when you read the book, when you are interested in becoming a better person so that you can have a good relationship. For example, I need to have relationship skills for me to be in a relationship, which I didn't have when I had problems in my marriage. I didn't have skills. I didn't know that I was doing a lot of things that were pushing Renato away from me. So when you invest, it's just like you invest in your career, in your school. You learn, you read, you see how you can apply that. And sometimes people think that I don't need to invest in love because love is just, you know, if I feel it, great. If I don't feel it, you know, I'll wait for it to show up. And it's not like that. Relationships cannot be waiting for you for, you know, one day you just bump into somebody who's going to be perfect. It's going to fit perfectly with you.
Yeah, leave it to fate, to destiny. You know, it's going to happen someday if I'm lucky. No, or at the right time. And then you realize it's a bit late for you. But it's going to happen if you prioritize it, if you plan for it, if you focus on it, if you see it as a good thing. In fact, as a way for you to have more financial stability. Because one of the best predictors of poverty is divorce. If you look at children who have come from broken homes, you look at the statistics of what happens to these kids when they grow up, and compared to kids from stable homes, you will see the difference, how these kids have more trouble finding their place financially, in career, in society, etc. So see marriage as a foundation for stability in your life, even in your financial life. Intelligent couples, smart couples, prosper together. They help each other to prosper. They are a team. And it makes total sense two are better than one. Two incomes, great. Let's talk about this. Let's do life together. Let's use this to our advantage, not let it divide us. So, be a team, in other words, and prioritize marriage. That's the first mistake, first sin that people are committing. Let's talk about number two. Believing lies about marriage. Believing lies about marriage. I think you'd all agree that marriage nowadays is suffering from a bad reputation. And we can all thank Hollywood for that, right? Because marriage nowadays is viewed as an unattractive proposal. It is sold to people as if it's some kind of prison. In other words, some people greet the idea of getting married and with surprise, married? Oh my God. Are you getting married? Oh my God. Some kind of prison. And people today, they started advocating other kinds of relationships. They started giving marriage a rest, and they are advocating all kinds of different setups for relationships. And some people have been proposing that in modern times, since we are living longer now, more than our parents and grandparents, it's impossible, it's unsustainable to live with the same person for 40, 50, 60 years or more. I mean, how can you bear it, right? That's what they say. Been going on for 23 years, been pretty good so far. We are living at the best time of our marriage. It's not boring. When you do it right, it's not a prison.
No, the thing is, every time you go from a relationship to another, you have to understand that you carry bags from that previous relationship. You carry a bag, you carry a trauma, you carry something that hurt you there. So if you're gonna think that every time you're gonna have to change partner every time, imagine how many bags in 40 years. It's hard.
One of the, I mean, we talk about Hollywood, one of the most famous proponents of this idea that you have to have now several meaningful relationships over a lifetime. In other words, it's impossible to love and be with the same person forever, till death do us part. That's no longer practical, some people are advocating. One of the most famous proponents is, of course, Gwyneth Paltrow, which separated, divorced this year from Chris Martin, and very elegantly called it conscious uncoupling. Conscious uncoupling. Isn't it interesting the way they put elegant names to an ugly thing, right? She was voted recently the world's most beautiful woman, married to a very successful, I'm not saying he's good looking, but some would say he's a good looking man. But not only Chris Martin, Gwyneth has been, not many people know that she has been, she has dated Brad Pitt for 3 years. She has dated Ben Affleck, also for 3 years. And of course, her marriage with Chris Martin lasted 10 years. So, as Chris was saying, imagine the baggage that you begin to carry from each of these relationships. And she is not even 45, I think, yet. Imagine what starts to happen.
I keep thinking it took me 12 years to adapt to this 1 year.
That was one of the more difficult versions, right? Yes, but you can imagine people are proposing this But they are opting for something much harder. They're opting for things that don't really work. Of course, that they make it look like it's painless and even fashionable. But the truth is that a lot of people privately, secretly, still value marriage. A lot of people don't say it publicly, but privately they know, secretly they know, and they want it. They want it if they could only get it. They want it. But publicly, marriage is being bad-mouthed. Just see, you have various examples of that. And just one example of this is how so many jokes are made about marriage. Always to make marriage look like a prison or ridiculous, like a burden. And here's another one for you, just for good measure. Just an example. A woman died, and they arranged a funeral for her. So there she was, her casket, and all her friends and family were there. And when the time came, the pallbearers took the casket, and they were